I'm Pastor George Borghardt here in Atlanta, Texas, on our way to McHenry, Illinois. Stump the Pastor across America, and I'm the pastor to be stumped. Stan, what's the question you got?
All right, a listener asks, a friend's mom who is a charismatic type has sort of encouraged me to go to their church and get involved with spiritual stuff there, i.e. speaking in tongues. She's not being overbearing by any means, but I don't know how to respond. I feel like it's a different situation than if it were my friend, because I don't want to be disrespectful when talking to her, and I think she definitely would get offended if I said something like, that's not the speaking in tongues the Bible talks about. Actually though, since I don't see her too often, I'm not even sure I need a response beyond no thanks. But what do you suggest?
I suggest no thanks. Along with, Lutherans believe differently than Pentecostals, and we sort of don't agree on the speaking of tongues. I want to be respectful and I want to be nice to you, but in actuality, I'll have to decline on the invitation to go to your church. Yeah, that's probably, no thanks.
So would you do anything to point him back to Jesus, or just kind of leave him hanging there? No thanks, well, sayonara, hasta luego?
Yeah, well, I mean, Jesus is the reason not to go there. If you want to talk to her about whether or not Christ is the center of what's going on in her church or what, you're most certainly to do that. But usually with these churches which aren't altogether biblical, it's really best to simply say, no thanks, I'm a Lutheran, you're welcome to come to my church and hear about Jesus and Him crucified. But no thanks is usually the best policy, especially with an adult. Adults are really cool. She'll back off. She won't put the pressure on you. Pastor George Borghardt still in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Wendy's here. Can you pan around and catch the Wendy's? Catch the Wendy's thing?
Daddy, it's Atlanta, Texas.
Atlanta, Texas. Just on the border.
All
Let's
right,
hear your
Pastor.
question.
So, a listener writes, the explanation to the 5th commandment says that we should not hurt nor harm our neighbor in his body.
Help and support him in every physical need.
Does this mean that sports that involve physical contact, like football or boxing, are sinful against this commandment? If not, why not?
Great question. The 5th commandment pertains to hurt or harm your neighbor in his body. Has to do with malice and intent. Sports like football, which I love football. Go Tigers, go Saints, who dat. Sports and football, which is it's part of the sport. Contact is part of the sport. You shouldn't have a conscience problem. Now, if you, with your sort of heart deciding to harm your neighbor in a game, well, then you may want to look at yourself. But playing a sport in and of itself, or playing football and all that contact is all fun and games. Now, having said this, you're not saved by whether or not you harm someone or don't harm someone in a football game. So don't go too crazy looking inside yourself. The only thing which saves is Christ alone. He alone is your salvation. Then, having been set free by Him, you're free to play some football and have fun.
Would you care to comment on that hit by James Harrison against the Cleveland Browns and the NFL's new rules about hitting?
I think the NFL's new rules are lame. Part of football is contact. But again, anything which, when we cross the line, have you ever noticed in sports where we say, like, I hate that team or I hate that person? You just sort of pull back on the rage a little bit, the nerd rage or whatever rage that sort of is, and sort of contemplate the fact that what you're watching is a game. What you're playing is a game. When you cross into hate, well, then you sort of have an issue. But again, what saves is not whether you hit or don't hit, it's Christ alone.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thanks a lot.